Hi guys, and welcome to this video guide to the Diablo 3 patch 2.3 or season 4 Barbarian group build guide. So essentially I think everybody this season in the group is mainly running the Hammer of the Ancients build, where you spam Hammer of the Ancients and use the 6-piece IK to maintain Wrath and Permanent Ancients. So let's start by looking at the skills you'll be using. So you want one type of, at least one Fury generator. In this case I use Furious Charge Merciless Assault, which is great for moving quickly in between mobs, and it'll also proc your Focus Restraint. So this is a very good choice. If you don't plan to move around as much, you could go for something like Bash from your primary skills, which will increase your damage by 4% or more. So that's another option to go with. Probably not Frenzy, because you do primarily want to be using Hammer of the Ancients. So Furious Charge is what I would recommend. Hammer of the Ancients Smash, we go with the Fire Rune because it has the highest overall weapon damage, so I think that's pretty much standard. Battle Rage Bloodshed will increase your damage, critical hit chance, but most importantly basically spreads 20% of all your crit damage to nearby enemies, so it's a very powerful AoE ability. Next up, you want basically something that will buff your group. So depending on the number of barbarians you have in the group, you might have two, you might just have one in a group of two, or you might have three. In any case, one barbarian should be using Warcry Veteran's Warning, one should be using Threatening Shout Falter, which will increase the amount of damage enemies take, and this doesn't stack, so there's no point in having two people use it. And then if you have a third barbarian, you could go something like Rend Mutilate for the 10% increased damage. Then you want Call of the Ancients together as one, which basically gives you 50% damage reduction, which is nice for survivability. Wrath of the Berserker Insanity for your massive DPS boost. And then for your passives, there's a few that I recommend always having, and these would include Ruthless, Nerves of Steel, and either Berserker Rage or Rampage. And then optimally you also want to have Brawler. In my current setup I have a Hellfire Ring with Rampage, so I basically get to go for all of these DPS passives plus Rampage, which is basically optimal. If you don't have a Hellfire Necklace, then I would recommend swapping out Brawler, because you might not always have 3 enemies, and this might not work for the Rift Guardian, so it's best to go with Berserker Rage and Rampage. Okay, now before I go into gear, I wanted to talk about Paragon because I usually forget. So Hammer of the Ancients gains 1% crit for every 5 Fury that you have. So in the core tab you want to max out your Fury, max out your movement speed, and then put the rest of your points into strength. Offense, you're going to want crit damage, followed by crit chance, followed by attack speed, followed by cooldown reduction. Because you're basically getting so much crit chance from your Fury, crit damage is a lot more important. Defense, start with Resist All, then you're probably going to go Life, then Armor, then Life Regen. And utility, definitely area damage and life on hit. I'm not putting any points into resource cost reduction because you get life per Fury, and you have no Fury issues at all with this build. So why reduce your healing, right? Alright, now we can look at the gear. The most important item obviously is going to be your Gavel of Judgment. This is the Hammer of the Ancients mace, or mighty weapon rather, looks like a mace. And what it does is it returns 21 Fury if Hammer of the Ancients hits 3 or fewer enemies, and the skill only costs 20. So if you don't hit 3 enemies, or if you don't hit 4 enemies, it's free and you actually generate Fury, so that's nice. and it gives a nice 30 to 40% damage boost to Hammer the Ancients, which is why we go for this particular weapon. So you also want, obviously, an ancient version of it for the highest possible rifts. You want Strength Vitality and either rerolling percent damage or rerolling the base damage, depending on what you get. Now, for solo builds, this is a group build, by the way. If you're going to be soloing, it might be better to have life per hit instead of vitality, but in group builds with a support monk, you definitely want vitality just to keep your health pool high. Okay, so that's the weapon. And then we go Focus Restraint for our rings. And I mean, these basically give you 50% increased damage from resource spending and 50% from resource generating. So you just want to make sure that you charge every 5 seconds, or charge on cooldown, or use your primary skill. And then we have the Immortal King set. So gloves, helm, chest, belt, legs, and boots. Pretty much set in stone here because we're not using the Royal Ring. You go Fury the Ancients for your shoulders, which basically cause your Ancients to generate Fury for you. And this completely solves your Fury generation issue. Best in Slot Necklace is going to be your Hellfire Amulet. For bracers, you have two choices. Either Bracers of the First Men or Strong Arms. Now, I don't have that good of rolls on my strong arms. I don't have an ancient pair, so I'm going with Bracers of the First Men. But your best in slot would probably be for progression at least, would probably be ancient pair of strong arms, and then putting the Hammer the Ancients bracers in the cube, because then you would get the full 200% damage increase instead of what I have here is 186. So it just depends on how lucky you are there. So now let's talk a bit about stats. So on your rings, you want crit chance, crit damage, secondary resist, and either strength or area damage. Now, area damage is a pretty good stat this patch. I haven't experimented that much with it, but I think you want to aim to have it on at least a couple pieces, which I unfortunately don't at the moment. Gloves, you want crit chance, crit damage, and area damage, strength. You're probably going to have enough vitality to not have to put vitality on your gloves. This pair has attack speed, but I would probably swap out the attack speed for area damage if I could. And shoulders are mostly defensive. Again, this is another piece where you can put area damage, but you do want to have your strength, vitality, resist all, and then either percent life or area damage. Now the helm is interesting because of the way that the Hammer the Ancients crit chance works, you don't necessarily need to have crit chance on the helm. So I went with one that has a lot of vitality, which really helps boost your health because the helm has a high stat weight for your primary stats. So what I'd recommend here is strength, vitality, and Hammer of the Ancients damage. Now on your chest, this is another piece that you can have a lot of defense on. The optimal chest would probably be strength, vitality, and reduced elite damage, or strength, vitality, resist all. Or worst case, strength, vitality, and 15% life. This is a very bad chest, unfortunately. But you do want the secondary resist if you don't have resist all, and if possible, life per kill is also going to be really good. For your belt's going to be mainly defensive, so strength, vitality, resist all, and life per fury. It's best to go life per fury over life percentage just because it is a pretty big source of your healing. So you definitely want to go for that. Legs, strength, vitality, resist all would be your best in slot with life per kill. I'm sorry, I don't think the chest can roll life per kill. You want reduced melee or reduced range damage on that. So yeah, the legs would have life per kill as your optimal secondary, and resist all as your primary. So my legs right now are also suboptimal. Boots, strength, vitality, resist all, and Hammer the Ancients damage. This is pretty much as good as you're going to get. not much else to say here. You do want to have the resist all, because it really helps to, you know, bring up your resistances to the high 70s, low 80s. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the set pieces. The bracers, you do want fire percentage, crit chance, strength, vitality, and a secondary resist. And for your necklace, again, because of the way that crit works, and if you have crit on your rings, you don't need crit on your necklace. So right now with my current gear, I think I'm at 95% crit, which I found was just high enough for, you know, high DPS, so I went with a fire percentage, strength, and crit damage on my necklace. So that is basically it for the gearing. You want to go with your 5 rubies for maximum damage and your amethyst for life percentage in your helmet. And let's take a look at the cube. You got the furnace for 50% elite damage. If you're using bracers of the first men, then you cube strong arms. If you're using strong arms, then you cube bracers of the first men. Nice and simple. For your ring, convention of elements, massive DPS boost. And this has me hitting for anywhere from 10 to 15 billion when it's up on normal elite mobs, and upwards of 50 once Bane of the Stricken has procced. So this is very nice. If you're doing solo, then this can be swapped for Unity, but this is not a solo build video. I'll make one of those separately. So last thing to look at is going to be your legendary gems. If you're planning to do progression, high rifts, definitely Bane of the Stricken. This will just exponentially, or multiplicatively rather, increase your damage every time you hit an enemy. I think there's a 3-second internal cooldown, so it's not going to proc like crazy, but it does make a massive difference on the Rift Guardian, and it also gives you 25% increased damage against the Rift Guardian baseline. So it's a very powerful gem. You do want Bane of the Trapped. It's a big DPS increase. And for your third gem, either Taeguk or Pain Enhancer. Now, Pain Enhancer applies a dot, physical dot, on your enemies, but more importantly, you get increased attack speed for every enemy, and that translates to increased damage and increased healing. So that's always going to be a solid choice. When I was doing the last couple rifts here, 65 and higher, I went with Taeguk because you get a nice armor boost, and you know, 0.5% times 85, so that's over 42% increased damage, and you can maintain your stacks of this by spamming Battle Rage if you're not already, you know, hitting something. So I think that Taeguk is going to be your go-to for higher grade rifts, just because it does get a little bit harder to survive. And I will say that you definitely want Nerves of Steel. Sacrifice Brawler if you don't have the Hellfire Necklace, because it will save you a lot of time, you know, accidental deaths, getting clipped by an explosion, something like that. It's better to stay alive than to have to wait to res and rebuild your Taeguk stacks and all that. So as far as gameplay goes, it's fairly straightforward. You just want to be watching your cooldowns. You want to charge on cooldown to maintain your ring and to proc your strong arms. Strong arms stack with other players, so you want to have as many of those as you can in the group. You want to be using Hammer of the Ancients on as many mobs as possible. You know, things should be clumped up nicely for you. Maintain Wrath of the Berserker. The cooldown will reset itself as you use Hammer, so that's very easy to keep up. You're not going to have any issues there because of the fast attack speed. And then Threatening Shout, you want to use this on cooldown as well to make sure that mobs are taking as much damage as possible. If you have Warcry, then you don't have to spam that as much. Just make sure that, you know, your group is buffed full time. And then Battle Rage, it's a pretty long buff. It's a 2-minute buff, so you don't have to worry about it too much. But it does offer a little bit of healing if you have Life per Fury, and it will keep your Taeguk stacks up. So if your Fury tank is full, you might as well be spamming it while you're on the move, just to make sure your Taeguk doesn't fall off. So yeah, that's essentially the build. And I'm just going to show you my stats real quick. With everything up, my crit chance is It's going to be 49 because this Battle Rage gives you an additional 3, and then I have 185 Fury, so that's a nice additional boost to crit chance. So I'm pretty much good as far as that goes. And yeah, I'm going to go ahead and show you guys a Greater Rift 67 clear. It's a nice example of what this build is capable of, and obviously as you level up your gems, as you optimize your gear, you're going to be able to push even higher. The leaderboards right now are showing support monk and double barb or triple barb builds, so the Barbarian is getting a lot of love this season, which is really exciting. Now the last thing I'll leave you guys with is this build is also very good for speed farming, whether it be normal rifts or greater rifts. If you do greater rifts, you obviously want XP, so you go for the Oryx Crown, which will double your gem effect. You want to put a ruby in your helm to increase your experience, and that will allow you to get almost twice the experience in a greater rift. So if you're doing like 60s, speed 60s, or speed 55, stuff like that, it's a really good way to level up Paragon. The other modification you can make, which is really nice, is to go sprint, either marathon or run like the wind, and that's perfect for doing normal rifts or even lower greater rifts where threatening shout doesn't matter, so you can just move around a little bit faster. And if you are doing kind of farm content, then I would say probably swap out Bane of the Stricken for Bane of the Powerful, just because you're not going to build up your bonus from this, and this will give you a permanent 20%, which is pretty good for lower level mobs. And then possibly also Pain Enhancer in for Taguk, because it's a pretty powerful dot at even at Torment 10. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you found the video helpful in your Barbarian group builds. I plan to make a couple other videos on a solo build, which is whirlwind based, and maybe talk a bit more about Seismic Slam. I was really excited about Seismic Slam at the beginning, but it turns out to not be as good as Hammer of the Ancients, just because of the kind of damage cap you get from the limitation on the bracers and the fact that your attack speed isn't quite as high. So again, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoy the Rift. The beginning was kind of shaky, but turned out to be a pretty good clear overall. Alrighty guys, see you later, bye.